Hi everyone, I'm Steve Stoller.
And I'm Shannah Haley, and this is Inside Plano, where we take you behind the scenes of our city.
We'll introduce you to the faces and places who help make this a great place to live.
And give us lots of reasons to love Plano.
Well, happy beginning of 2022, Steve Stoller.
Thank you, Shannah. Happy New Year to you. What a year 2021 was, boy.
Yes. Not
You know,
quite
we
what
thought
we expected.
we thought 2020 had its challenges and we thought 2021 would be better. And maybe in some ways it was better, but boy, we sure had a lot of challenges in 2021.
Absolutely. I think, no one really knew what to expect. And maybe that was a good thing because there were some real highs and there were some real lows. And, you and I were talking before this podcast and said, why don't we just do a look back on everything that happened in 2021? Because there were some really tremendous things that the city accomplished and that our residents accomplished, and give people a sneak peek on what's happening this year too. What do you think?
I agree. I think that's a good idea. And I also think that we really met a lot of those challenges head on successfully. And, it just seems like when everybody works together, whether it's staff and residents for a common goal, we can accomplish great things. And I think this last year we did in some really tough times.
Absolutely. Well, and I'm going to apologize to all of our listeners because as we're recording this, I have my first cold that I've had in a long time. So I have my mask to not get anyone sick, but I may every now and then cough a little bit. But let's talk about the beginning of 2021. We started out, of course, deep in the pandemic, and fortunately, vaccines were on the way. They started in December of 2020, really being pushed out. And that was a great opportunity for the city to partner. As you were mentioning, when we worked together, good things happen. We worked with the county and with several providers from Curative to Baylor Scott and White to Texas Health Resources, and of course our Plano Fire Rescue team had vaccination clinics up and running in different places throughout the city, and that was great. We saw incredible vaccine uptick for those who were interested in getting a vaccine. It was definitely available, and the city helped make that happen.
They had to work out some of the rough edges at the beginning. But I remember when I went in the line to get my first vaccination, it was being put on a Curative over by Clark Field. And I'll tell you, they had a system in place and it ran smooth and quickly when I was there. It was really impressive to see, and like I said in the beginning, there were long lines. They had to work some of those kinks out, but it was very impressive. It really was. And they saw a lot of people come through there.
Absolutely. It was great, and what a wonderful way to kind of stand in the gap until there were enough supplies available to be able to put them in pharmacies and doctors' offices and whatnot. So it was a good transition. I almost feel like a lot of 2021 was about what can you do to stand in the gap until the next thing comes along. So it was a lot of short-term solutions. So learning, improving, and then getting out of the way when the next thing needed to get into place. And those vaccine clinics were a good example of it. Another thing that, we put into play, we kind of put it in at the end of 2020 and then did away with it in the middle of 2021 was our COVID call center. That was a tremendous effort because at the beginning of the pandemic, there were way more questions than there were answers. And I think that that's still true to a certain extent, but people have a better understanding of where to go to get information sources. But, no one knew what was open, what was closed, what were the guidelines, and those were changing very frequently. So working together throughout the city, we, leveraged heavily our library team. They are so great at providing answers and working with customers, and then of course our communications team, because we were kind of the information hub, and we worked with our administrative assistants throughout the city, our parks and recreation staff, our other customer service care points, and we had an operational call center and this giant, I want to say at one point in time, 40-page FAQ of any question that you might have about anything related to the pandemic, on where you could go to find information. And that service was just incredible. It ran 7 days a week for a while. Then we took it down to regular business hours. And then again, we're at the point where we don't need to have a call center anymore because we have those resources available other places. But that never would have been possible without the work of many, many people, including I don't want to forget our technology services team who figured out how we could have a call center without everybody sitting together in the same room. And they just really created some incredible solutions and helped a lot of people. Hundreds of people use that call line over the
One of
course
the
of the months it was open.
one of the important roles the city does is to provide information for our residents. And what a great way to provide information, especially when there was so much fear in the community.
Yeah.
People didn't know where to get their vaccinations. They didn't know about the vaccinations. There were so many other questions based on that uncertainty. And what a great service to provide those call centers and even the FAQs. I mean, 40 pages of questions pretty much says it all, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
It really does. We'll talk about another case of having to provide high level service, lots of answers to questions for something that none of us had dealt with before. Winter Storm Uri in February.
Uh,
It was crazy.
that winter storm was unlike anything we've ever experienced here.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I have been here for a long time, and there's nothing that compares with that. And that was really another difficult challenge with so many people out of power, pipes bursting, lack of running water. You and I were impacted by it too. I mean, I was fortunate we still had our power at our house, but you lost your power
Hmm.
for quite a long period of time.
Yeah.
And I know my family invited you guys to come over and have some warmth in our house, which really helped.
It really did because it was difficult. We had power maybe for an hour and then we'd be 11 hours without. And we could have stayed in the house, but it wasn't comfortable. Fortunately, we never had any water pipes burst. But, Steve, at one point in time, more than 50,000 homes in Plano didn't have power. And some of those were very prolonged outages, like I experienced. Some of them were on a rotational basis. So that was significantly a challenge because you and I mean, you can't really joke when an emergency is happening, but looking back on it, we were like, wow, that was like a slow moving disaster. First day, oh, pretty snow, be careful driving. And then it was like, oh no, no power. Then it was, oh no, frozen pipes. Then, oh my gosh, pipes bursting and that's impacting our water pressure. And then, oh my gosh, there are people who don't have water at home and how are they going to drink water? So it was like solving another huge challenge every day. It was crazy. We were doing the math as we were getting ready for the mayor's State of the City speech. And between fire rescue, I'm looking at my notes here, and Plano police, they dealt with almost 4,000 calls for service just between those two departments call outs. So, 3,500 for fire rescue and 2,200 were for Plano Police Department. And we trained parks and recreation staff in how to shut off water. It was kind of like public works was going around shutting off water. You and I did a video on how to turn off your water. It was incredible. A lot of learning for us. And I think we sent an all-time record number of emergency text messages, code red messages that week on what people needed to do because we found that if you don't have internet at home, everybody's on data service and really text messages were the best way to get information out.
And all the people who had pipes burst, of course, had to have their water shut off. And a lot of those folks, they no tap water. So no drinking water, no showers,
Mhm.
no toilet facilities. So there were a lot of things that the city did. One is we set up a distribution center and we gave people cases of bottled water. And then I remember we opened our rec centers for showers where
Mhm.
people could go and take a hot shower. So I really think, in so many different ways, on so many different levels, the city responded and provided what the people needed, even warmth.
Mhm.
For people who had no heat, uh, we partnered with some of the local faith organizations, several churches that opened their doors to allow people to come in and have some warmth, which was really a huge deal. When I mean, you slept in a house without heat when the temperatures were sub freezing, so how difficult that was.
Mhm. Yeah, and I can't imagine what it would have been like for individuals who had elderly family members or little young ones. I mean, we were under all of the blankets with the pets, and it was still very, very cold. And Speaking of those partnerships, you mentioned the faith-based organizations. Several of our businesses made a big difference too with meeting the need for water. They donated hundreds of pallets of water, for those water distribution sites, and again had partnered locations to hand those out so that people didn't have to travel far to get water. So that was incredible, and it's not good use of taxpayer dollars. I'm from Kansas, so up in Kansas we get snow all the time and have lots of snow plows, but that's not a good use of taxpayer resources here in our area because we don't really get snow and ice a lot, so you're buying expensive equipment. So um, they were using all kinds of equipment to from Public Works to clear the roads, and I thought they did a terrific job because you and I still went to the emergency operations center to work, so we were out on the roads, and I don't remember feeling unsafe on our roads considering, how much snow and ice we had gotten. It was still fairly drivable.
One thing that always touches my heart when we get into a crisis like this is there are so many people in our great community who do work together, and they come to the aid and provide a helping hand to their neighbors and those who need it, and often to people who are total strangers that just live in the same community. And, when I was a reporter working in television news, I saw a lot of that. But our community is really a very strong example of people lending a helping hand to those who really need help. And that's always touching to see. And it makes you feel really good about living in a community that responds like that.
Absolutely. A lot of restaurants opened up their doors and were feeding the community. We saw a lot of residents delivering food to the public works staff and to the 911 call center team and police and fire. It was just really amazing how they took care of one another. But that winter storm has had a rather long lasting impact, something that we're still dealing with right now, right? Steve, I feel like you've done a ton of messaging on our tree situation.
Yeah, the trees and debris. A lot of the trees were either damaged severely or were killed by the stretch of cold temperatures. And a lot of people don't realize they let those trees stand, but those trees, especially when we have high winds, are really in danger of falling. And, if you're close to a sidewalk or a roadway, it can really be a public safety hazard. So I know the city sent out thousands of letters to people. They identified all the trees that were either heavily damaged or dead that needed replacing, and asking people to take them out to remove that public safety hazard. And for the most part, everybody has responded very, very quickly and effectively.
Yeah, it's still a little heartbreaking to have to say goodbye to your tree, but if it's dead, it's going anyway, whether you want it to or not, for sure.
And there's still people that are requesting pickups for debris once they take those trees down. And we were advising people to go with contractors because the list for the city to pick that debris up is so long that you can probably get it removed quicker at a similar price by having a contractor do it. And a lot of times, if you're hiring a contractor anyway to remove the tree, you can probably pay a little bit more and have them haul the debris away.
Absolutely. I have a
Get it
feeling
done quicker.
yeah, that's true. And I feel like we're going to be dealing with those trees probably for another 6 months or so because it just, it takes a while to get all of the trees. It takes a while for all that debris to be ground down and composted so that it can have its next life. Well, it's hard to believe, Steve, that at the time that we're recording this, last year, we still had facilities closed and slowly reopening, like council meetings and planning and zoning meetings were still held via Zoom only. But by March, everything had reopened. We had people back in meetings, and the one facility that took the longest to reopen was Sam Johnson Center because it was being used as a vaccination clinic. And of course, it was our highest risk population since it serves senior adults. But it was opened on a limited basis by May. And by the end of the year, fully reopened and functioning. We really figured out how you maintained public health and kept facilities open. So that was really encouraging.
Yeah, slowly but surely, we tried in many ways to resume normalcy with many of our operations. But the great thing is we discovered all this technology that we weren't using before, things like Zoom. And now people can still use that technology if they don't feel comfortable going to a public meeting and being in the city council chambers.
Absolutely. And I know that you and I, before we joined the city, we both had busy jobs in the private sector, and it's not always convenient to make it to a public meeting, but to know that you can hop on from your house as long as you have your camera on, you can participate in public meetings. That's really a value add, I think, for folks. And you can register to speak now using technology. You don't have to come and fill out a speaker card. You have a simple registration system. So I think, out of some very challenging situations, we have some really innovative solutions. So that's exciting.
And Sean, in 2021, we had a bond election. And a lot of people, I don't think, get it when it comes to the importance of bond elections and what bond money is used for. Talk about there were 6 projects that were approved by voters. Talk about some of those projects and how important they are to our city.
Yeah, for sure. So there were actually 6 propositions, which represent several different projects. And we had a citizens advisory committee that reviewed all of the proposed projects. So there was a lot of public input going into what would be included for voters to look at. All of the projects really focused on renovating and maintaining existing assets. So we had a proposition that focused on street improvements, one that focused on parks and recreational facilities, one that focused on recreation centers standalone. And that actually was the Tom Muhlenbeck Center. It dealt specifically with the renovation there, major renovation, that is. There was a proposition for public safety facilities and fueling stations. There was another proposition for municipal facilities that specifically is a renovation of the council chamber here at Municipal Center to make it in accordance with changes in technology and really improve its accessibility. It has several challenges in the accessibility realm. And then the final proposition dealt with library facilities. So these are all projects that have a long lifespan. So the money is spread out over time. And while voters approved the propositions, each year council then goes through and decides as part of the annual budget process what portion of projects will be funded for that specific year. So just because these are authorized doesn't mean that the money's available and that we're spending it all at once. But this was a significant investment by the voters of Plano in maintaining our city for generations to come.
Something else that happened in 2021 that was very significant was the approval of a comprehensive plan. Now, you probably have heard of Plano Tomorrow. That was approved by the city council several years ago. And there were a lot of people in the city that weren't too happy about that comprehensive plan. There was a lawsuit that was filed. So they went back to the drawing board and they got people from all different sides, all different parts of the community together, and they formed a comprehensive plan review committee. And those people, they met, how long did they meet, Sean? It was quite a long time.
Almost 2 years.
2 years, they hashed out a lot of different facets of the plan. And when it all came down, when the smoke cleared, it was a unanimous approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission, by City Council, by members of the committee. And now we have a plan in place. And not everybody got everything they wanted. There was a lot of compromise. But the great thing about it, and the city manager and the mayor have pointed this out, is that everybody came together to discuss it. They kept their minds open. They hashed it out. They formed an agreement that everyone can live with. And now we have a very solid, comprehensive plan moving forward into the future.
Yeah, I think it's very exciting to know that we have a solid base to work from because we have a limited amount of undeveloped land, but we have some areas that are potential for redevelopment. And so that plan is really essential in helping leadership make the right decisions for that property. Meanwhile, I'm sure no one will be surprised to think back on all of the construction that was going on in the city of Plano and still is going on. So, some things I was looking at, and I thought, holy cow, I forgot that that happened. Tom Muhlenbeck's pump room had a long overdue renovation. Like some of that equipment was failing. And so, they had to close down the pools for a while and get that fixed. So, that happened. Asphalt overlays, Steve, tons
I
of those.
love the asphalt overlays. And what they do is it's much more expensive to repair and replace a concrete road. So what they do is they make smaller repairs to the concrete and then they put a fine overlay of asphalt and then a thicker overlay of heavier asphalt over that. And I'll tell you, when you drive on these roads with the asphalt overlay, I call it the magic carpet ride. It's such a smooth ride. I mean, you can really tell it's like your car is just like gliding. It's so nice. And we're saving millions and millions of dollars, tax dollars, by doing the asphalt overlays as opposed to concrete replacement.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just I agree with you. My biggest challenge with the asphalt overlays, just to be candid, is I have to keep an eye on my speed because it's so smooth that I just want to go, go, go.
Yeah, but it's nice. And we'll be seeing a lot more of that, I believe, in the coming year.
I think so too. Another project that people may not see, but it's a significant one. We talked towards the end of last year with Caleb Thornhill, Director of Engineering, about the rebuilding, reinforcing of the culverts that run under Collin Creek. Although that property is being redeveloped by a private developer, the culverts belong to the city of Plano. They're over the Spring Creek that flows underneath there, and they were end of life, maybe a little beyond end of life, right, Steve?
Yeah, we're going to see so much construction this year. You mentioned Collin Creek. Boy, that is going to be some development. And,
Mhm.
last year in 2021, they officially broke ground on it. So it's going to be fun to watch that thing come up from the ground. And, there's so many other city projects that are underway. And, a lot of people, they're not very happy when they see construction, but it really is for the greater good. All the road construction, those roads are going to be so much better when all the repairs are made, lanes are added. And then, Shannah, there's a lot of other things too, not just roads. What are some of the others?
Absolutely. We had a lot of sidewalk drainage and alley repairs going on. And, those can be really inconvenient, but incredibly necessary. They replaced a lot of the brick pavers in downtown Plano so that there was a smoother ride. It's wonderful to see those historic bricks, but it was really kind of a rough journey through downtown. So that got fixed. Oh, this was one that we loved too, the canopy, the covered walkway over the Dallas North Tollway at Legacy Road. So kind of as a better protected area for pedestrians and cyclists. It's beautiful. I was really surprised.
Yeah, and the goal there was to try and make it a lot safer and easier to go from the shops at Legacy on the east side to Legacy West on the west side of the tollway. You got to cross over the tollway there on Legacy, and I'll tell you, it is a lot more safe now trying to make that trek across the tollway.
Yeah, and another area that's a lot more safe, but maybe a lot less fun. They leveled out at Park and Coit. That was a huge hump in the middle of the road. Since 1999, we've driven through that, and I've kind of like roller coaster wee as we went airborne a little bit going through that intersection. And you can't do it anymore; it's flat, and that's one of many things that have been worked on Coit Road. And I know that that's been super disruptive. You've done a lot of videos helping people understand things happening at Legacy and Coit, Parker and Coit, Park and Coit, and it will be much better once that entire project is complete. What else? The Traffic Management Center. They're working on improving that. That's a group of folks who are monitoring our intersections and really working on traffic flow, and an improved center will help them do that. And a big one, the Silver Line. It actually started construction this year.
That's right. A lot of people have said through the years that DART didn't really have a way to go east west. But with the Silver Line, you can actually board a DART light rail right off Avenue K in East Plano and go all the way to DFW Airport.
That's going to be a game changer.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about some of the bond projects too that are
Mhm.
underway now. We've got the dual entry wave pool. This is at the Oak Point Rec Center. They're building a new swimming pool there. And some of the features, including that dual wave entryway, is going to be really cool. What else?
Splash pad, a family leisure pool. I love this. Rentable cabanas. It's kind of like the beach comes to Plano. So that's going to be really cool. And it'll be an all abilities pool area. And that was a long overdue improvement at Oak Point Rec.
And two of our libraries are undergoing expansion and renovation, Harrington and Davis.
Hmm. Yeah, and several of our playgrounds are under construction. A big one that's happening right now is at Russell Creek. A lot of people go up there for the fields, but the park and the playground are being renovated. Just tons and tons of small projects like that underway throughout the city. But you talked about at the beginning of the podcast how people help one another and really come together. One example of that that's really been so fun to watch over the years is the peanut butter drive, which is the spread hope peanut butter drive. It started out just as I want to say peanut butter in backpacks, then became the mayor's peanut butter drive, then became the Plano peanut butter drive, and now it's Collin County wide. And we had a goal of 300,000 pounds of peanut butter. Far exceeded that, though, didn't we, Steve?
Yes, it's funny because every year they set a goal, and the goal is always exorbitant, and it seems like, yeah, they're never going to reach that. It's so much more than the previous year, but every year they seem to break the record. 347,979 pounds of peanut butter, which is amazing. That's almost 48,000 pounds more than the goal, which is
Yeah,
incredible.
and needed. We know. We
Yes.
know. And
Yes.
everybody always says why peanut butter, super nutritious. That's why. And of course, they collect nut butters because not everybody can have peanut butter with allergies. So that makes a huge impact throughout our county. And I'm so glad that our fellow cities contribute to that campaign. We couldn't do it without them, and couldn't do it without the work of our residents, and our businesses actually donate quite a bit to that campaign as well.
And Shannah, we have some new numbers that
Mhm.
came in last year regarding our census data.
That's
So
right.
now we know. Go ahead.
And I was going to say, what's our population?
Well, our new population is 285,494. That's about a 10% population increase since 2010.
So I feel like that's a slower increase than we've experienced in previous years, which is what we expected. People are moving, further north, but that's still, it's a good size city, 285,000. Call it 286 if we wanted to round up. And so we know how many people we have to serve, right?
That's right. And also the fact that we're almost built out.
Yeah.
So we're not building a lot of new homes because there's just no more space to build new homes.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Well, one final thing that we did at the very end of the year, the last council meeting, we renamed 4 facilities. Well, one wasn't really a facility, one was a park. Do you want to talk about the ones that we renamed?
Sure. There were 2 gentlemen that passed away recently. Both of them were very beloved with the city. One of them was our longtime Public Works Director, Jerry Cosgrove, and died unexpectedly. And boy, that one hit home and it just tore our hearts apart. The other one, the same, was Adrian Magallanes, who was the Day Labor Center manager over there. And both men just contributed so much to the city. So we felt it was appropriate to name the Day Labor Center after Adrian, and our public works, our service center, to name that building after Jerry Cosgrove. 2 very fitting tributes to 2 men who just really were dedicated public servants. The other one deals with another dedicated public servant, and that's Greg Russian, who's one of our deputy city managers now, was a very long time serving police chief in our police department, and also someone who contributed so much to the city. And we thought it was fitting to name the new substation that's being built. Actually, it is built now, right?
It is built.
We're changing the name of the
Correct.
substation to the Gregory Russian Police Substation. Yeah. So, and then the other one was just a little pocket park right here off of 15th Street and Avenue K. That was the original location of the Masonic Lodge. And the Masons have done so much. They've been here for such a long time. We thought it was fitting to name that little tiny pocket park right along the street there, Masonic Park.
Yeah, that actually they dug through the records and found that was the original location. They met inside a storefront that was located right at that spot. So in the 1800s, I want to say 1870s. So pretty cool.
And actually, it's Masonic Square, not Masonic Park.
That's correct. Masonic Square. It's a pocket park named Masonic Square.
Right, right. And some great recognitions too, Shannah.
Absolutely. So let's go through these real quick. Library of the Future for digital literacy outreach in the community. And that was a big one for our Plano Public Library. We're very proud of them.
Plano Parks and Recreation ranks #1 in Texas and 15th in the USA based on the Trust for Public Lands annual park score. Very proud about that.
Livability named Plano the #1 best place to live in Texas and the #17 best place to live in America.
And this is one we see quite often. We were named the safest place to live in Texas, #1, and the 14th safest city in America, according to Wallet Hub.
And finally, we have our fifth building in Plano that's been added to the National Historic Register of Places, Sagling House. So that was a very exciting day last fall.
So we're done with 2021. Let's talk about what we're expecting for 2022.
Sure.
Of course, the DART Zoom network launches on January 24th. This is a big deal too, because all the bus routes have been changed. And what they did is an extensive study to try and maximize the flow of how people get from one place to another. And a lot of thought, a lot of time went into this. And July 4th, it all happens.
A lot of on-demand service through that too, which I think is also super convenient. I mentioned the mayor's state of the city. That's happening on February 3rd. And also in February, council is kicking off its listening tour for Plano residents. So council will be moving throughout the city. Those are facilitated discussion points. We'll have a link to sign up. I'll put it in the show notes so that you can sign up to participate in one of those sessions all month long.
We talked about some of those amazing and fun features at the new pool over at the Oak Point Recreation Center. The target date, hopefully, if everything goes as planned, will be in May.
Davis Library as well should be reopening in spring 2020. They actually had to close it down to do some of the most disruptive construction. So we look forward to that complete reopening.
And we have a new fire training facility, state of the art, some really great features there that's also expected to open in spring of this year.
And Harrington, hopefully that'll stay on schedule. The Harrington Library renovation expansion, we expect that in late 2022.
People who go to the animal shelter are going to have much more space to park. That's something we've heard about. And they're going to improve and expand the parking lot.
Oh, that'll be great. It's hard to find parking over there. Also, beginning of 2022, you mentioned the renaming of the police substation. Well, Greg Russian is officially retiring from the city of Plano after many, many years of service. Sam Greif has already been named the new incoming deputy city manager, so that transition will happen.
And the new fire chief is Chris Biggerstaff, and he is sworn in as the new chief of Plano Fire Rescue.
Absolutely. And that'll be a public event. Public is invited to come and for both the reception to welcome him and for the swearing in that happens as part of council meeting. Well, Steve, that was a lot. What was your favorite moment or moments from 2021?
Guess so many of them. I think the one thing that I'm really enjoying is our city manager, Mark Israelson, came up with a really great idea to try and highlight all the services the city provides. You know, we provide so many different things, and a lot of our residents really just don't know what their city provides. So what we're doing is a series of videos, and Mark came up with the idea of calling it Stoller on the Street. So what we do is we get all these different topics, I mean, literally hundreds of things, and we just present it in a very simple conversational way to let our residents know what we're doing for them in terms of city services that we provide. It may be an event, it may be a construction project, it may be something along the trail that they never knew that was there. And we've done more than 40 of them already. And we've been posting 1 or 2 a week. And I really enjoy it. I really do, because I get so much meaning out of helping to tell our fellow residents what we offer as a city. And, you know, I love this city. I love living here as a resident. I love working for the city. And it really it fills me up with pride to let people know all the different things we do to serve them. So that's my favorite thing. And then another thing, which also ties into my old career, is we're doing a newscast. It's a very short 3 to 5 minute newscast. We post on social media every Friday, and it's just a quick little newscast to tell people what's going on in the city. It might be city council action, events, just things that we are doing as a city that, again, most people probably don't know about.
Yeah, those are
How
both.
about you? What were your favorite things?
Well, I really loved our senior care calls that we ran. It was such a great partnership again with our friends over in the library and in Parks and Rec as well, but library, I think, primarily staffed it. Set up a service to call interested seniors every other week just for a really a personal conversation for about 30 minutes, just friend to friend. And honestly, some friendships were developed. It started out as just making sure that our seniors were doing okay through the pandemic, as a lot of isolation was happening. And it was just wonderful to see relationships develop over time. And so that felt very meaningful to me. The other thing that I've liked, similar to you, we've started a more in-depth section of our weekly newsletter that goes out. After council meetings, we do a council recap and we pick out 3 or 4 things that were approved on the consent agenda. And first of all, most people don't know what the consent agenda is. It's routine business in the city. And so there are things that, it's routine, but they tell a story about really what your city does. It's easy to look and see road construction underway or to see a new building coming up, but to know that a piece of technology was purchased and is being implemented and it's going to improve how traffic cameras work, or that new fire ambulances were purchased, like all of those like nitty gritty things. And it just gives a little more insight into how your tax dollars are being spent. And I think we all want to know that. I'm giving you this money, whether I want to or not, it's part of my taxes. And how are you using those? And how does it impact my life as a resident here? And so we've gotten a lot of really good feedback on that series. And so I'm really proud of that. And I'm excited that people are interested in learning more about the normal day-to-day business of what it takes to run a city.
And Shannah, if I may pay you a compliment,
Oh,
you and your team have done a fabulous job in the last year, especially getting information out to the public. And really, your team's to be commended for everything they've done to get that info out.
well, thanks. We have a lot of talented people who work on this team and they work really hard and they all love Plano. And, a compliment is due back to you as well. Most people are like, how do Steve and Shannah work together? Well, we do, share an office suite, but I think our work is so complementary. We couldn't do what we do without you. And I know that our resources support the work that you do as well, as in terms of video and all of that. So it's been an enjoyable partnership. And I think the city of Plano is better, better for the work that we all do collaboratively as a team.
Thank you. I agree.
Well, City of Plano, that does it for another episode 47 of the Inside Plano podcast. Hard to believe we're at 47 already. We are looking forward to 2022 and bringing you some new stories and in-depth. We've learned very much that you enjoy the behind the scenes information. So we're going to continue to make tweaks to our podcast to give you the information that you're looking for. If you have ideas for stories you'd like us to cover or answers that you'd like us to find for you, just send us an email at askplano@plano.gov. But until then, thank you so much and look forward to talking to you next month.
Bye, everybody. Happy New Year. Make it a great year.
Happy New Year.
And that's it for our Inside Plano. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did doing it.
If you have any comments or suggestions, send them to us at askplano@plano.gov. Bye!
Talk to you next month. The Inside Plano podcast is brought to you by the City of Plano.